That was nonsense, Fliss told herself. He had no power over her now, no power of any kind, and she was here to prove that to him. "There was no need for you to meet me," she told him, forcing herself to raise her head and look at him in the eyes. Those eyes that had once looked at her in a way that had flayed the skin from her pride and her self-respect and left them raw and bleeding. Her stomach churned again as she watched his far too handsome, arrogant, aristocratic male profile tighten into hauteur. His mouth curled in contemptuous disdain as he looked down at her, the late afternoon Spanish sunlight shining on his thick dark hair. She was 5'7", but she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze, her own firing up from warm blue into heated violet as she met the look he was giving her. She was hot and travel-weary, and her body reacted to the unfamiliar heat as she resisted the need to lift the heavy weight of her thick, dark gold shoulder-length hair away from the back of her neck. She could already feel it starting to curl round her face in the humid heat, overcoming the effort she had made to straighten it into an immaculate elegance. Not that her appearance could ever compete with the true elegance of the smartly turned-out Spanish women around her. She favoured casual clothes, and was dressed in a pair of clean but well-washed and faded jeans, worn with a loose white cotton top. The jacket she had been wearing when she had boarded her flight in the UK was now stashed away in her roomy leather handbag. Vidal frowned as his gaze was drawn inexorably to the wind-blown sensuality of her naturally honey-streaked hair, reminding him of the last time he had seen it. Her hair, like her body, had been spread against her bed, enjoying the amorous attentions of the boy who had been fondling her, before Vidal and her mother had interrupted their illicit intimacy. Angrily, Vidal looked away from her. Her presence here was unwanted and unwelcome, her morals an affront to everything he believed in. But like the dark matter at the heart of a poisoned wound, there was also that kernel of self-knowledge that raked his pride and refused to be locked away and forgotten. To have looked into the wanton sensuality of her face, to have witnessed the manner in which she, at 16, already an experienced tramp, had flaunted that sensuality mockingly in front of him, without a trace of shame, should have filled him with disgust and nothing but disgust. Only along with that disgust, like a sword plunged straight through his body, there had been that momentary pride-searing lightning surge of desire. It had burned a brand of searing self-contempt through him, and the embers had never fully cooled. She might be able to get under his skin, but he could never allow her back into his heart. She shouldn't have come here, Fliss told herself, not knowing that she would have to confront Vidal, not knowing what he thought about her and why. But how could she not have come? How could she have denied herself this final opportunity to know something of the man who had fathered her? Unlike her, Vidal looked impeccably cool in the heat, his suit that shade of neutral light beige that only continental men seemed to be able to wear with confidence. The blue shirt he was wearing beneath his jacket, somehow emphasizing the falcon gold of his eyes. A hunter's eyes, a predator's eyes, cold with cruelty and menace. She knew she would never forget those eyes. They haunted her nightmares, their gaze sliding over her like ice, their chilling contempt burning her skin and her pride. She wasn't going to allow Vidal to see how she felt, though. She wasn't going to shrink away in fear beneath their incisive, lacerating focus, just as she wasn't going to be intimidated by him. Only to herself was she prepared to admit that it had been a shock to find him waiting for her at the airport. She had not expected that, even though she had written to the lawyers informing them of her plans she knew he would not like or approve of, but which she had no intention of changing. A thrill of triumph laced with adrenaline shot through her.